Okay, Aaron.
All right. Yeah. So, good evening, everybody. I appreciate everybody joining us. You have representatives of the Crimson Pack here to have a great discussion about the Black men engagement in this political campaign. Before we get started, I think we're going to start with a word of prayer. So, if you'll join me in prayer. Gracious and Gracious God, we thank you for waking us up this morning, continue to watch over us, our families, and continue to bless us. We ask that you watch over our service members who are serving our nation near and far, high and low. We ask that you bless and continue to watch over our first responders. God, we ask that you watch over and help guide those folks who may be undecided in this election, making sure that they understand that their vote does count, God. We ask that you guide the leaders that are elected upon us to be great stewards of leadership and to continue to carry out your will and your way. All these things we ask in your son Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. We appreciate it. I'll start with introductions. I am Jeff Bell, CAO of the Crimson Political Action Council, resident of the Atlanta metro area, fall 1985 Zeta Mu Initiative of the Noble Clan of Men, Western Illinois. And I appreciate and very grateful for all of you men, all of you brothers that joined me. Dr. Crawley.
Absolutely. My name is Dr. Rasean Crawley. I am an initiated Spring 20 of Louisville Alumni Chapter here in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm actually a candidate for Louisville Metro Council District 22. And so just excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity, brothers all.
Cuzzo.
Evening, brothers. Joshua Watkins. I'm a Fall 2016 initiative of the Louisville Alumni Chapter Kappa Alpha Psi, where I serve as the poll mark. I'm also Democratic Representative elect for House District 42, Kentucky House District 42. Glad to be with you, brother.
Brother Burton.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alex Burton, currently on City Council in Evansville, Indiana. I also am a state representative elect for District 77 in the House. So glad to be with you all. And I am a 2008 initiative of the Alpha Zeta chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi.
Brother Whitley.
Greetings, everybody, brothers all. I am Commissioner Aaron A. Whitley, Commissioner for the 6th District of Chatham County, Georgia, currently running for re-election. I am a 2004 initiate of the Gamma Chi chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, which is Savannah State University. Honored to be here with you, fellas.
Brother Harris.
Greetings, brothers. My name is Chris Harris. I'm a 2016 initiate of Alexandria Fairfax Alumni Chapter in Virginia. I'm currently a incumbent school board member in Alexandria, Virginia, running for re-election on my second term. Glad to be here, brothers. Thank you.
All right. Brother Stillings.
Good evening, brothers. I'm glad to be here today. I am a student at the University of South Florida and an initiate of the Zeta Chi chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated of the Spring 23 line. I am an intern for KPAC and just happy to be here with y'all.
Great to have everybody. So let's jump in. This election season, probably unlike any that we've seen, not the first woman running, but the first African-American woman of color running against, I don't even know how to tiptoe around her opponent, but I'll be as professional and respectful as I can. But needless to say, the stakes are very high. If you guys had to craft a message to the people, and in particular, we had mentioned Black men, just to frame a thought process in their choosing, how would you all attack that?
Well, if you don't mind, I'll get started with that, Brother Bell. I think the first part would be to say, if you stay home, you are just continuing on the furtherance of the silencing of the Black man that we've endured in our history. We have fought to be recognized as a whole person. At one point, folks who look like you and me were considered 3/5 of a man. At one point, we did not have the opportunity to vote. At one point, we had to pass literacy tests or pay a poll tax to be able to vote, to take part in democracy. And just because we may not see everything that we think we need to see does not mean that we should just relinquish our vote or relinquish the control of our government to silence. By us staying at home, what that does is it's a vote for somebody who may not care about you, whether you know that or not. So I think one thing we have to make sure that we're sharing is that if we don't vote, we are choosing to be silent. And that silence is deafening. That silence is what allows the perpetuation of so many policies now. When you look at the voting data at this point, if every community voted, if every eligible voter voted, things would be different in a lot of levels, federally, locally. But unfortunately, oftentimes we choose to stay home. So my message is don't stay home. Don't allow folks to shush you. By you staying home, you're allowing white supremacy, you're allowing bigotry, you're allowing hateful system to keep you silent and tell you to sit down, boy, and shut up.
Okay. Who else would like to join, share some thoughts?
I could speak a little on that. I think a really important way to frame it is about protecting our community and protecting our sisters, our daughters, our mothers. And we need to kind of embrace a positive kind of view on masculinity and protection of our community. I think that is the most important, most critical message we need to carry through this campaign. Because, previous elections, there were big issues, but the issues we have in this campaign, the protection of democracy, the protection of a woman's right to her body, these are issues which deeply affect our community. These are issues which have disproportionately affected our community. And we need to channel a message of protecting our community. When you look at your family members, when you look at the women in your family, you need to realize that when you choose not to vote, you are potentially throwing away their safety. And that is something we need to remember every time we get the chance to vote. So that's what I would frame it as.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And to go on top of that, there's the topic of healthcare and protecting the right to choose. I would also talk about the healthcare as it relates to the Black man. And really our ability to continue to thrive in this country, much more than what we are right now. We know that there is a school to prison pipeline. We know that gun violence is a real thing that we're facing, but we don't talk about the health component. Prostate cancer and it's very real. And the fact that there are efforts to take the prostate exam, making it not mandatory, for those at 35, making it optional now, that continues, that then leads to a further situation where the Black man is put at jeopardy as it relates to our health. If we're not here and our kids are growing up without the Black male present, that leaves a void in our community. And it's really something that hasn't really been brought up to the forefront. It's been a lot of discussion about women's health, but it's about men's health as well. And making sure that we take care of our bodies and do exactly what we need to do. And these are uncomfortable conversations, just like a lot of voting has been. We talk about it every 4 years, but we need to go to the ballot every time there's an election to make sure that our issues are at the forefront. We can't get in a situation where it's the second half, and all of a sudden the Black male issues is not in the realm of top of conversation.
Yeah.
Our issues need to be. I was going to say our issues need to be at the front and foremost all the time, and with the hope of KPAC and just the efforts, and hopefully we'll have a Black man as Speaker of the House. Our issues will not be every 4 year, or every 2 year conversation. This is going to be something every election year. Our issues on the ballot, and we're going to make sure progress is made.
And to speak to that, I remember I'm having some technical issues. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
Okay.
hear you.
Power went out for a little bit. Sorry about that. Dr. James Lantrip, my political professor in Knoxville College, he defined politics as this. Politics is the system of the allocation of resources. And when you're talking about healthcare That's resource allocation. The Affordable Care Act, Medicaid, or resources to target impacted communities, all those are decisions, whether it be on federal level, local level. It's who gets what, how much of it, what's your share of the pie. And that's one thing to kind of cut through all this foolishness with, during this campaign season. My thing is allocation of resources and my constitutional rights. And then I'm sizing up candidates and who's speaking to the allocation of resources. And I'm going to say the allocation of resources to the masses. I am a member of the masses. And the thing is, with Black men, we very few Black billionaires, very few Black millionaires, not very many Black upper middle class Black men. We are the masses. So, that she's not really Black, or this, that, and the third, or all this other peripheral stuff that doesn't really make any difference. What's going to be your share of the pie? I'm going to go on a little bit longer and I'm going to shut up. For example, student loan. I had student loan forgiven. I would not have gotten that from a Republican administration at all. It would have been laughable to even think that. The student loan forgiveness, tax credits for children, and those resources are favorable to the masses of people more than tax cuts for billionaires and billionaire corporations. So, and that's how I just don't get it. How you can think for us, specific to Black manhood and our population, how he would be an appropriate choice. Has anybody heard anything in the direction of a credible rationale to support him?
And I'd like to jump in there too. And there was something that Alex mentioned that I think is really important. I want to actually approach this a little bit different. I want to speak to the disillusioned Black man who may be voting for Trump or may be considering sitting it all together. And I'd like to invite that Black man to the conversation to speak for themselves. One of the things as a Democrat, I think the party needs to do is to get serious about Black men and their issues and our issues. This isn't new to this election. And quite frankly, the Black men that I see in the comment section or that I may know desperately that talk about looking another way is they feel like the party doesn't speak to them directly. And whether we like it or not, I mean, it's a reality. So what I would say is I invite every Black man into this conversation that definitely isn't getting an invitation from a Republican. You're just not going to get that. I'd invite every Black man to look at their state, local races and do something that I did. I was one of those Black men who, while I've been engaged in the political process for quite some time by nature of my job, I was always complaining about how something was being done and how it could be done better. But for those sports fans out there, you really can't win a game from the bench. And it's very easy to talk on the sidelines about what somebody should or should not do. But you don't have skin in the game if you don't get invested in yourself. And so I would invite every Black man to get in the game. And from what you do not hear from the Democratic Party currently, I invite you to start that conversation and be that voice yourself. You are not going to get that invitation from a Republican. You're not going to get that invitation from the Republican Party. And that would be my contribution.
I'll go ahead and come in. At the end of the day, your vote is your voice, right? It's your power. And by voting, we honor those, as was mentioned previously, who fought, sacrificed, died, bloodshed for the right to participate in democracy as itself. So that is my what I want to contribute there, but also just to take it a step further, is we as Black men have to get beyond the gimmicks that's being played in politics. And I'll be very clear about that. When Trump came out with those shoes, like, he was catering to the Black male because he knows Black men generally, we love shoes, right? We love sneakers, we love that. And to cater to that was a disgrace to the Black man. It was disrespectful. The other piece of it is when when I ask a few, brothers around, why are you voting for Trump or considering him? Oh, well, during the pandemic, I received this amount of money. He gave it to us. Well, if you have an understanding of how that works, that had to be approved by Congress. But what people don't also understand is that he delayed the checks being sent out just so he can have his signature put on those checks. Once again, another gimmick for the Black man. They see his name as the signer of those checks. Oh, well, Trump did this, Trump did that, but not realizing what really goes into effect to have those, that take place and the distribution and how that works, right? Now, we benefited, the ones that received those checks, we benefited, we paid it, but that was going to happen regardless. It didn't matter who was in office. That was going to happen regardless. But with that is having the understanding and the knowledge as well as some education around how politics actually works, right? I think that we can do better as Kappa. We can do better, and I even broaden it out to Black organizations, NPHC, NAACP, that we can do a better job in being more proactive in our approach in the education piece of our community prior to an election like this taking place, right? Because we do a disservice to the community, especially Black men, when we're not having these conversations and it's a rat race to say, okay, let's get people registered. Let's do this. Let's do this. And it's like, okay, if we've already set the foundation, then we don't have to necessarily be as forceful or quick to make a decision. We can be more tactful and strategic in how we approach these. And so I go back to say, at the end of the day, Black men and really anybody, your vote is your voice. And like I tell people, if you do not vote in this election, I don't want to hear your complaints. I don't want to hear the issues. I don't want to hear anything you have to say because you failed to do the right thing, and that's to vote. If you choose not to vote, then you are silencing yourself, and you really have nothing to contribute on that level, except for you're voting for the op. So I'll go ahead and leave it there.
Thank you. Bro Harris.
Yeah, brothers, appreciate it. I just think that, I think that we all know that there are issues with the Democratic Party. We're not going to sit here and believe that there are no issues. And from a lot of people that I come across, they look at the token things they've gotten over the last few years when I was in office. Or we got these tax breaks. Or we got these checks. I was making more money when this person is in office versus another person. And it's a selfish thought to a certain degree. Because, I have a wife, I have a granddaughter, I have two daughters. And, what about them? What about those that are coming after us? I think that we try to build things up, not understanding that we're not going to be the ones that benefit from a lot of these things. It's going to be our futures, our kids, our grandkids. And we have to set the foundation for them. And I don't think we do that. And going back to, what we do in our own organizations, I think, to be honest, our organizations only get serious around this time. We only see they spring their head up every 4 years, every 3 years, and the biggest thing is let's get everybody registered to vote. But what are we doing on those off years? Are we educating ourselves to know what to expect when the election does come up? We don't. It's all about the mad scramble. Let's register to vote. Let's vote for this candidate because the other candidate is simply worse than this. It's a scare tactic. And we don't have to be fearful. I just think we have to do a better job of being educated. And it's like we should not be scrambling 6 months for an election. Because we know that after this election is over with, they're going to crawl back into their holes. They're going to go back and do their thing. a lot of this is going to be forgotten, and then we'll see them again in another 3.5 years. And just to end this piece of it, at whoever we vote for, there need to be a degree of fear in them that we're going to hold them accountable for what they say they're going to do. There is no fear, especially from the Black community, of what they're going to do if they don't fulfill their promises, because they know we vote 92% Democratic every election. We're going to come back. And, it's not a reality of creating a third party. That's not going to happen. It's not a reality of, going to the Republican Party, because they don't show us anything to even entice us to come over there. It's about holding this party that we've been supporting 92% of our vote for years accountable, and having the fear in them that there's going to be repercussions if they don't follow through with what they say they're going to do. I'll leave it right there, brothers.
Right. And I would say, I'm sorry, go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, go ahead. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Commissioner. Go ahead.
I wanted to touch on that, Mr. Harris, what Brother Harris said, because I think that's a very important point. And, for the sake of conversation, I want to have this conversation, right? So I currently serve as the chairman of the Democratic Party of Chatham County, right? And so when we talk about holding the Democratic Party accountable, I'll ask you all respectfully, how many of you are active members of your county's Democratic Party? Yeah. Okay, that's good. So we're preaching to the choir, right? So then now how many people in our group chat, in the chapter group chat, whether it be the alumni, whatever it might be, are members of that party? And what are we doing to bring them to that, right? So with that, I think you're absolutely right, Brother Harris. Absolutely right. We've got to hold the Democratic Party accountable. But that starts with us getting engaged. And I think getting engaged in a local party is probably one of the simplest ways you can learn about the political process, because you're going to see the elections, you're going to see campaigning for somebody who wants to be a chairperson or whatever it might be. So I think those of us, the choir, we've got to do a better job of getting folks to engage in the process locally. When we talk about the Democratic Party, I think one thing that gets lost in the Democratic Party, and I shout this from the mountaintops, why do we allow the Republican Party to be the party of business? Right? Like when we hear business, that's the only thing Republicans talk about. I feed my children as an entrepreneur. I get my little measly check from the county government, which I appreciate. Thank you, citizens of Chatham County. But I feed my family with business. But we don't talk about business. We talk about, different things. And so, with that being the case, I think a message for the Black man that I would say is we have the most to lose, right? Because when stuff hits the fan, a white man is going to be able to connect with other white dudes to get access to capital, to get plugged into a business. A white woman is going to be able to ride on her husband's coattails or her brother's coattails. A Black woman is going to be able to get housing and so on and so forth. Because as we see in our system now, social services, it's not often you see a nuclear family living in the projects. I won't say it's completely unheard of, but it's pretty rare, right? So we have the most to lose. So we cannot sit out, and we should start just on the local level when it comes to our Democratic committees and parties. If we masked up, if all of us got our group chats to go to a meeting, we could probably take over leadership of that organization, that county organization, in a matter of months. So I just wanted to touch on that because I think you're absolutely right, Brother Harris. I yield.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, you look at everybody always goes back to, we elected Obama in 2008, and then in 2010 we sat at home. And then that's when the Tea Party has now kind of morphed and did their thing. I think it's arguably our time to take hold of our local parties, like what you just said, but then to also stay consistent, whether that is joining having the conversations about what the issues are and how we can fix them, and using the capital that we have by putting the people in positions. Let's use that and let's move the needle. No, Superman's not coming. Dr. King's gone. It's on us. And we can complain, and we can look at all the conversations about what, looking at how the economy was bad, drugs infiltrated our communities, all of that. But what are we doing from this point forward? And the answer to that question is all on us. School to prison pipeline is not going to solve itself. All the issues that we facing, they're here. And until we stand up, rise up, unite, and really put that plan in motion, thinking long term, not, because for the past, 15, 20 years has been, this is the most important election of your lifetime. Like, we got to get out of that cycle. We have to, and we have to put that agenda forward. And, there's a project 2025. What are we going to do to combat that?
Yeah, I see you, Joshua. I'm a quick comment. My message to Black men is we can't allow our frustration, our aggravation to make us step back and give up. That energy should make us move forward. Go take over city councils. City council meeting, man, should be about 100 brothers in there, no matter where you are. School board meetings, start showing up. I mean, because you know how it is. If they see us, it's like, whoa, from off the flip. Just showing up will have impact. Become educated. I love that you brothers mentioned that program of education from the words of Fred Hampton. To learn what's going on, be educated and informed, and go show up. Don't get on Facebook beefing. I'm guilty of it. Don't, be engaged, be a presence, and then things will change. Because that's what they do. When Obama got elected, them folks swung into action, and they ain't stopped since. We got to swing into action, Brother Watkins.
Brother, if I could jump through this screen and give you a yell on that one. That was just, I've been really screaming this one to the mountaintop for a very long time. I've spent almost 11 years in local government as a senior municipal executive, working on a lot of different projects. My contribution to that point that you were making about getting engaged and whatnot, and before I make this point, I actually want to carve something out in a niche way if I can. VP Harris has been on the scene in the national stage, aside from her rise to sort of popularity as a senator, for a very short period of time, and an even shorter period of time as an actual nominee, as a presidential nominee. So if I look at those who have so many questions or just outright do not like her, it doesn't make sense in relation to the time that she's been in the forefront. So if I ask myself, why is there such a pushback on her nomination, I could come to a few different opinions. I could throw all of the things out there that are currently being there, but I would submit to our thinking that the problem with getting people on board for this national vote happens to be the disdain for the party at a local level. And for me, people understand government at the level they relate to it. And I actually don't think it's a full outright rejection of VP Harris. I think it's an outright rejection, if you will, for that percentage that's going another way for those folks at their local level. Here's my local example. When I was campaigning in my district, I had plenty, when I would go to the Black neighborhoods in town of Louisville, Kentucky, I had plenty of constituents tell me, I got a Black council person I ain't never seen. I mean, I got people that hold these offices, they only come around. So I would say for us, not only get involved and join the boards and commissions, but can we please know what we're doing when we take these seats? I am so tired of people running for office because they are mad. That won't keep, as somebody who's been in local government for a long time, systemic inequality and racism will wait you out. It will wait you out all day long. Stop running for these offices because you are ticked off at one or two things, because that 4-year cycle on city council, that 2-year cycle at the state house, you'll get tired of this stuff really quick because there's always something to get mad about. You're sacrificing your time, treasure, and talent. Know what you're doing. If you go into the community as an elected representative and you say we need more housing, you need to know the price per square foot to build more affordable housing. If you tell people that we need more jobs, you need to understand the incentive structures to create better businesses. If you tell people that we need to have better public safety and a reform of the criminal justice system, you need to understand the administrative office of the court and everything in between. You need to know what you're doing. We need to stop running on passion and start learning about practice. We need to know what we're talking about. And I, for one, sorry to get so elevated about this. That
Get
was one
elevated,
of the,
brother.
I got into this race. I got tired of listening to people that did not know what they were talking about. And that's why we don't deliver. We love to talk about a lot of stuff that we don't know how to do. Say what you say about Republicans. Say what you say about the Tea Party and Donald Trump. I think those things were great. But when a Republican tells you they're going to do something, by hell or high water, they are going to do it. Democrats, when we come to the table and we make these promises, it's a maybe, sort of, kind of, all, and then we don't get it done. And that's why people, I think, they're not necessarily rejecting VP Harris. They're rejecting like the Bible says, hope deferred make the heart grow weary. People are tired of not feeling it and seeing it. I went to the grocery store today. I went to Aldi. A carton of eggs is $5. Like that's really, really happening. And to the brother who said, why did we concede business to the Republicans? Yo, on that, who said that? When did they become the party of business? They're union busters. They don't care about the working family. They never have as a party. And so I would just finish by saying, when we get elected as Black men, can we not forget our communities when we get enticed by the allure of the private meetings and the private dinners and all of the things that come with that? And can we run on results? And I believe if we start doing that, people will run to this party because it's the only party that makes sense.
Well, how would you, let's go a little deeper in the need for us to reach into our communities on grassroots level. What avenues, what mechanisms, what strategies would you get that average brother that may be disgruntled in between election cycles and bring them into your office? Bring them into what are the vessels for people who are listening to us?
Really quick for me, I spent, like I said, almost 11 years in local government. My first 4.5 years was in real estate development, dealing with the repurposing of vacant properties. If anybody's ever heard of a land bank, I know Black folks, we love real estate development. We love to talk about that. I used to work for our city's land bank. I was fortunate with a counterpart of mine to rewrite all of our sales programs to make it a bit easier to acquire properties that cities were holding. I went into our communities. I used to go to churches, neighborhood associations, barbershops, everywhere. I used to teach people how to buy property for themselves and say, this is what you need to do. I would take people down to get permits. I would take my own time and talent, treasure. So I think whatever you know how to do, whatever you're skilled at, and even if you're not skilled at something right now, look at your local. I'm thinking of real estate and property right now because I think ownership is the greatest way for us to gain autonomy, which we really need to be talking about. But look up your local eligibility for homestead exemptions and tax moratoriums. Learn how to do it and go teach somebody. That right there I found was the easiest way to reach people who had never heard my name before when I knocked on their door. I was able to be a concierge, if you will, of local government. And that's what built the trust for me.
But probably you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, it also takes the organization. So I actually served as president of Louisville Alumni. I'm MPHC as well. And so one thing that we are doing under my administration, being very prescriptive and very determined, is in between these election cycles, we're having these communications, these conversations with our communities about what elections look like going forward. We're having these conversations about what it takes to be in office. Just like Brother Watkins mention is knowing the business of the office and executing accordingly and not running on instinct or on emotions, because that won't last. And so with that, it's leveraging all of the resources that we have. So I'll say this just real quick. When it comes to representation, once I win the election, because I'm claiming that right now, I will be the only Black male on a 26-seat Louisville Metro Council. I say that again. I will represent one of 26 as a Black male that is in a community that has far more Black male representation. The thing about it is that we need to make sure that as we get in these positions that we're collaborating together. So prime example, Brother Watkins, he's, Democrat elect. We have another brother, a Black pastor running for the state in the area that I'm in. I'm running Metro Council. We have a Black male police chief, right? We need to come together collectively as Black men and start having these hard conversations to say, how do we push this forward? What does this look like? And how do we capitalize on what's available to us? The other party is doing that. Our race counterparts have been doing that. So call a spade a spade. We're not doing that. Or if we're doing it, we're not doing it to the extent that it needs to be done so that we can get more brothers in and engage in going forward. And so I say that is leveraging, like I said, MPHC, we're being very prescriptive and very narrow focused on, in these next 2 years, we are going to have community engagement conversations. We're going to have elected officials, Black elected officials, come talk to MPHC and talk to the community in Black Louisville about what it looks like to run. How do we run? What are the issues? How do we attack those issues? What does that look like? How do we get ourselves name recognition? Because that's what everything is going to go on going forward, is name recognition. So with that is being, like I said, being very prescriptive and being very laser focused on what we're doing and not veering from that. We can pivot as needed, but we're not veering off course of making sure that we hit that target. And so that's where I'll leave it at.
Okay. Brother Stillings, I noticed you had your hand up a little while ago.
So I just wanted to touch on a little more about union membership and kind of labor organization, because that is something I do intend to kind of professionally practice. We as Black men need to understand our role in the working class. And I think that's something we understand very well, but we need to push further in, because the Black man is one of the most critical components of the American working class. And economic autonomy starts with labor skill and labor control over our workplace. Pushing for more union control over our workplaces allows us to barter for more wealth from our occupations. We are business owners and we need to be business owners, but we also need to be workers who have more direct leverage over their bosses than we do right now, especially in the South, where we have so many right to work states where it's hard to organize a union, where we are struggling to get unions off the ground. This is something we have to push for.
Okay. So I tell you what, for any candidate who was anti-union or pro-union buster, to what impact would that have on the Black man? Brother Stillings.
It would be massive. I think increasing union membership and increasing union control over our workplaces would put more wealth into the Black man's pocket. Speaking personally as a Black man who is a service worker, having a union would massively benefit. I have a Black father who works at Amazon, and he would see so much benefit from just having more control over his workplace and better pay. More union membership directly corresponds most of the time to higher union pay and better benefits. And this is something we need to understand. This is something we need to push for.
Thank you. And I purposely threw you that softball because there again, Republican Party is good for business, good for jobs, which is about as bad as the Great Pumpkin and Easter Bunny. And to pivot just a little bit, I mentioned allocation of resources, but also constitutional rights, which is kind of shameful in 2024. We still have to be as concerned as we are about our constitutional rights. I think brothers need to understand that the person who is president makes federal judgeships appointments that are lifelong. Lifelong, and it seems like it's a pretty cushy job. I don't see too many federal judges taking early retirement. Like when they retire, they damn near dead. So when you think about reparations, when you think about criminal justice reform, policing, you think about what's going on with our school curriculums for our children, taking even more out with regards to our history and contributions that erode the sense of value that we have in this society. Policies that would speak to those issues would be challenged in federal court. Who do you want making those federal judgeships appointments? Have you made your assessment of your rights? Have you made your assessment of the allocations of resources that you need relative to who's going to be making decisions to appoint judges and set policy? Any comments on that?
Yeah, brother. I'm glad you brought that up. I think that I think that I've talked to a lot of brothers that has, evaluated this 2025 plan, and they think it's a joke. They think it's not serious. They believe that the extreme nature and views of that doc can't be implemented because nobody will ever go so far to do the things that are in that document. And, just like, back in the 80s and 90s, you see a black man killed over in DC or somewhere, and it was breaking news. 5 years later, it was normalized. 10 years after that, it was normalized. They don't even put it in the newspaper no more because it's part of culture, it's part of society. These changes that will be made, it will be extreme on the front end. We'll have a couple years shell shock and we'll fight, fuss, kick, and moan about it. And then 5 years after that, this will be normalized. And the rights that we would take that are being taken away for us, for our women, for our children, this is going to be a reversal that we can't get back on course. Because the things they're doing now, 10 years ago, these were things that were talked about under the cloak of darkness. They're talking about it right here in the front now. It's like, hey, this is what we're going to do. Stop us. And the blatancy of these things that are happening now, everyone should be fearful of another 4 years of this man. And that's not being soft. That's being real of the realities of what this man could do with 4 years of not giving a damn about anything but him and his. Now, I just want to leave us with that every brother that we come across, there needs to be a degree of seriousness looking this man in his eyes and like, yo, this is real. I mean, I know that we get to this place where we have some success, we get affluent, we have a nice car, nice wife, nice home, and then we forget or don't think that those things impact us because we have arrived. We're there. So those are problems that those below us are going to deal with. Those that don't have our tax bracket are going to have to deal with. And I think that we need to have a degree of serious understanding that we are going to be impacted just as much, if not more, because us, the ones with the resources, are the threats. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to leave us with that, brothers.
Yeah. Brother Whitley.
Sorry.
Brother Whitley.
Yeah, so to touch on what Brother Harris just said, when we think about how we've arrived, right? If we don't pay attention, we're gonna be gone again. When I think about, for example, here we are, I'm 40 years old, right? 20 something more years, 25 more years, I'll be looking to perhaps shop for Medicare. The Trump administration wants to privatize Medicare. That directly affects us all. You think it's medicine's expensive now, Wait till you put Medicare into the free market. The Biden-Harris administration has not only protected Medicare, but also created the ability. They are negotiating costs for prescriptions. The Biden and Harris administration have lowered insulin costs significantly. The Biden Harris administration has dedicated funding for us through business using the Inflation Reduction Act as well as the bipartisan infrastructure deal. What do I mean? Let me expound upon that. As a Democrat who cares about business, because Republicans aren't the only people who look at business, I'll tell you that those policies that I just noted earmark billions of dollars for disadvantaged business enterprises. And when you go into the definition of what that is, it's Black and brown businesses. It's us. So what we have to make sure that we are doing is sharing that information to that person who's not really recognizing what's real. To go back to the discussion about union busing and how unions are so powerful. I live in Savannah, Georgia, and we were sweating when ILA 1414, which is the International Longshoremen's Association, went on strike. This nation was about to spend a whole lot of money. And you saw how fast that got cleaned up, thanks to the Biden-Harris administration, I might add. But that's one of those spaces where longshoremen in my community were some of the first upper middle class people. That's one of those jobs where folks were now, those longshoremen have opened businesses, have opened McDonald's and different franchises and put money out there to help other business owners. And that's through organized labor. So we have to understand that. I think Dr. Crawley hit it on the head. We got to be able to disseminate the gimmicks. I think it was Dr. Crawley, or it might have been our brother Alex who said that. We got to be able to decipher the gimmicks from the reality. The last thing I will say is we as Black men, we can no longer afford to let somebody else let us know what to do. Right? Like and everybody has said this. And so I just want to echo it because it's so real. It's so real. Again, if the Democratic Party isn't doing what we want them to do, and we know the Republican Party is in our home, well, we need to go and tell the Democratic Party what we want. Not tell our wife or our old lady, our homeboy who does go to the meetings what we want to see. We got to go and tell them what we want to see ourselves. We've got to get in the game. I think that the Harris administration, the Harris and Walz campaign has proven to us that they have a plan to do things for us. Another example of that is plans for home ownership, something that has escaped Black men and the Black family in a lot of ways for so long. The ability to develop generational wealth when grants and low and no interest loans were given to our fair-skinned neighbors to build homes, and now those homes are worth $400,000 and $500,000. Families are changed just like that. You go from you talk about generational wealth. Home ownership is that. I haven't heard Donald Trump talking about that. I heard him talking about a whole bunch of other mess that don't make sense. I've heard him talk about a bunch of selfishness. So now is the time for Black men to be selfish. And so part of that is, again, getting involved with our local party, not staying at home and seeing through the gimmicks. Again, there's a home for you. Nobody's stopping you from getting involved with Democratic Party. Democratic Party wants to hear from you. The Democratic Party needs you. The Democratic Party has worked with our wives and our mothers and our aunts for so long to take care of us. And it's time that we step up and help, carry the lift, shoulder the lift or shoulder the load like we're supposed to.
Thank you. Dr. Crawley, you were about to say something?
Yeah, good brother. The only thing I was going to say is Brother Harris talked on it about the administration itself, about Project 2025. Here's the thing: if Donald Trump gets into office, this is his last term based on the Constitution that he can serve. What is to stop him from going rogue? Because you have the Supreme Court in his pockets, depending on how the House and Congress shapes out. So we're risking that, and then let's just say, his executive orders. I mean, he will have unlimited power in a sense, and then the Supreme Court just already said that anything that he does as president cannot be held against him. So when we're looking at how we are going to look at the future of our country, these next 4 years are crucial, because if that man gets back in office, there's nothing to stop him at all. There's nothing to give way. And then his supporters, minions, however you want to call it, they're going to be right there behind him, cheering him on. But the funny thing is that the same thing that they're cheering him on is going to affect them too in a negative way. But nobody wants to have that conversation either. So, but that's all I wanted to say, that these next 4 years, crucial, because this is his last term. So he has nothing to, pull back and kind of save to run again. This is it. Unless, they do something else with the Constitution or try to do something where he can serve more. But anyway, I digress.
Anyone else? We're getting close to close. We could probably do this from now on, but we don't try to close it up. Anyone? Yeah, I'd like to have a couple last things. Project 2025, which I've been calling Project 1925, because those pillars of that document put us in a time machine and catapult us back across the civil rights era, catapults us beyond Brown versus Board of Education. Black man, you're aggravated, supposed to be aggravated, but don't tear your nose off with a pair of vice grips to spite your face. When you're talking about all that, is a circumvention of the gains that we've made. When you hear a man say immunity for police, that shook me, because I'm thinking about, it's already an issue already. But when you have a president of the United States who is going to be, if Trump is elected, and with the Supreme Court, federal judgeships, another 200 or more lifelong federal judgeships, and that comes from the top, immunity, and it's coming from the top. What does that look like for us here on the ground? You have to have, we can't function in a United States of America with unchecked police authority. That's, I don't have a spirit of fear, but I got a spirit of nervousness. I'm nervous, super nervous. So, it's assert ourselves. And everything I've heard, I'm not surprised. I know I'm with some good men, but I know the marching orders that I'm going to give the Crimson PAC is that, we will engage in awareness and education in between election cycles. And whether it's through this here or other social media platforms, or just out in the community, my thing is to increase participation. Simple things: increase participation at school board meetings. Let them see us. Increase participation in city council meetings. Pay attention to what's going on in your county government. Call that representative's office. When we allow ourselves, the refrain from many of the electorate is that they don't come see about us until it's time to vote, which is true, but you don't go see about them either. When you make a presence of yourself, you can't be ignored. And, that would be my outreach to brothers throughout the United States of America. Okay. Anyone else to close? Hey, we really appreciate you. I may call on you again, with Noob. So once you show up and volunteer, then you on the call him list for whenever I need something. So y'all know how that goes. But really, really appreciate the conversation. It's been enlightening. And you all keep up the good work. Thank you very much. Yo.
Y'all have a good evening, brothers.
Yo.
Yo.
No.